And here we are with News with Studes. Today we're going to be talking hockey. Baseball will be coming on a later day as opening day is within a week from the day that we're recording this. So let's talk about the New York Rangers. Really successful lately. The Rangers have been playing some of their best hockey all season within these last 3, 4, 5 games. Let's start with the 9-0 shutout against the Flyers. First game with Chris Knobloch as the head coach, along with assistant. I forget. I feel like such a bad Rangers fan. I forget what that assistant coach's name, but former Ranger captain Chris Drury also behind the bench, while David Quinn and the usual Ranger staff is out right now on the COVID protocol. Alexander Georgiev looked great. I mean, a 9-0 shutout. Georgiev is the thing with Georgiev is he either he gets you a shutout or he lets in 4 goals. It almost seems like there's no in between. And also talking about that 9-0 shutout, Mika Zibanejad. We're gonna talk a little bit about him later, but he went off in that second period. He I believe he tied the record for most points in a single period with 6, where he had the natural hat goal. 3, 2, 1. Where he had 6 points with the natural hat trick, and he also added 3 assists to that. Moving on to the 2-game series against the Capitals, the Rangers were a little quiet in the first game. They scored 1 goal in the first and didn't score for the rest of the game. Looked like it was on pace to be a 1-0 win, which it should have been, but unfortunately, Georgiev, for some reason, was out of position on those two rebounds that fell right in front of Ovechkin's stick, and he was able to just tap him right on into the net. Second game, they did a lot better, obviously. With I believe they won 3-1 on that second game. Despite the lack of goals, between those 3 games, the one against Philadelphia and the 2 against Washington, obviously not including the 9-0 shutout against the Flyers, there was a little bit of lack of goals, but they've been controlling almost every period they've played. I'd say 7 out of the 9 combined between Philadelphia and Washington. It would have been nice to have won both those games against Washington, but in that first one, Vitek Vanacek, stellar. He's having a good season so far. He's got 13 wins, a 2.66 goal against average, and a .911 save percentage. That's really good considering the fact that in the offseason, it was supposed to be Henrik Lundqvist and Samsonov competing for that starting role. Vanacek has been great this season so far, and it's probably, he's probably one of the biggest reasons why the Capitals are sitting close towards the top of the East Division right now. Let's talk about Mika Zibanejad. Mika Zibanejad. Oh my God. Rough start to the season. Started right before opening night for the Rangers. Actually, I believe he had COVID. He was on that COVID protocol list. So he had a rough start to the season, but he just absolutely kicked it up. And it was no surprise that he wound up being the NHL's 3rd star of the week. Not including the most recent game against Buffalo. Zibanejad totaled 4 goals and 4 assists for 8 points in 4 games, that going back to both games against Philadelphia and Washington. However, if you were to include his stats from the last game against Buffalo, which was an assist on Adam Fox's goal, ever since that 9-0 game over the Flyers, he's put up 4 goals, which is more than half of his total on the season of 7, 5 assists, which is more than a third of his total on the season of 13, and 9 points, which is just less than his season total of 20. Not to mention he had a plus minus of 7. One thing that kind of, you notice is that his recent success started the night of the first game with Chris Knobloch as the acting head coach of the Rangers while David Quinn was on the COVID protocol list. It almost makes you wonder if Mika doesn't like playing for David Quinn. There was a game between the Rangers and the Devils. I believe it was the game that the Rangers won 6-1. Quinn benched him for the first 10, almost 11 minutes of the second period. And without argument, Zibanejad clearly wasn't performing as well as everybody thought he would, considering the fact that he finished 5th in the league for goals with 41 last season. One thing that you have to wonder is if, him having COVID had anything to do with how he performed at the beginning of the season, because if there was, it clearly nothing's bothering him anymore. Um, but yeah, like I said, it almost makes you wonder if he likes playing for Quinn or not. And considering the fact that a guy like him is performing like that with a potential dislike to a head coach, again, I'm not trying to make accusations or anything, but it almost makes you now wonder how some of the rest of the players on the Rangers feel about David Quinn. There's been talks on social media. Some people say that he's fine. Some people say he's got to go. It's been 3 years now since Jeff Gorton, wrote that letter saying that it was time for a rebuild and, let everybody know that some of their favorite players was going to be gone. And remember that they're like, we're looking for a head coach that's A, B, and C. They thought Quinn matched it. I'm pretty, Quinn had no prior NHL coaching experience. I believe he was the head coach at Boston College, not Boston University. I believe he was Boston College. So some people want him gone. I mean, I don't really know how I feel about it. I like where Chris Knobloch is now. I mean, he's had NHL coaching experience. I'm not sure if he was ever a head coach, but I know that he was the assistant coach of that Flyers team back in 2012 when the Rangers played in the Winter Classic that year in Citizens Bank Park. But moving on from the coaching staff, let's talk about the Rangers' most recent game against Buffalo. The Sabres, they struck first in the game with a goal early in the second period, but before that, nobody really had control of the game. But that would go on to change when the Rangers would score. And for the rest of the game, you can argue that the Rangers were in control, which is, you can say is the reason why they've had the recent success that they've been having. Perfect example of them taking control is that in the beginning of the second, the Sabres had the first 5 shots of the period, and the next 18 were 15-3 in favor of the Rangers. And certainly, if it wasn't for Keith Kinkaid, the Rangers might lose this game. He really kept them in it. The biggest issue with that game against Buffalo is that they got too many chances at the front of the net. I'm pretty sure there was a backhand shot that rang off the post that was close to the crease. Jeff Skinner had that shot that Kinkaid made, the incredible glove save that could be nominated for Save of the Year. And then, that first goal that the Sabres scored, there are 2 guys in front of Kinkaid while there's 2 Sabres to Kinkaid's right, and they're jabbing at the puck, and the Rangers, I feel like in that case, stop jabbing at the puck and try to get those guys away from Kinkaid. That's the one similarity that all the opportunities with the Sabres had in common was that they were in a couple feet of the crease, and that's what the Rangers defense really needed to work on was getting players away from the net. And hopefully we see a little bit of an increase in that in tonight's game against Philadelphia. But before we talk about the goals that the Rangers scored, let's continue to talk about those goals that the Rangers gave up. That first goal, like I already said it, clean up the defense when it comes to players rushing the net. The second goal was almost the same issue as the first. The defense in front of the net was a little weak, setting up for a one-timer from Dylan Cousins. And the third goal was one of those unfortunate ones. A little bit of a sloppy play with the turnover at the blue line when they went to go change lines. Unfortunately, you wish Kinkaid could have made that save, but unfortunately he doesn't. Let's move on to the Rangers offense. The first thing we need to talk about, shoot the puck. This team sometimes passes too much, which I get. Sometimes it's actual playmaking, and it works a lot. We see it on the power play. But other times, it's just having a team of selfless players. Strome last night had the puck right in front of him with half the net open, but he took too long to shoot the puck. I'd rather you shoot the puck and miss the net than not shoot at all. Another example was Zibanejad had the puck right at the front of the slot, right in front of Tokarski, and rather than taking the shot, he passed it out to Panarin. Let's talk about Capo Caco really quickly. Boy, oh boy, did Capo Caco finally get the monkey off of his back. He scored his first goal in 19 games that night. But however, despite only putting up 4 points before that game, Caco's probably been one of the more noticeable players on the ice. Later in the period, Kreider scores a power play goal, his first of the game. And I just remember thinking that's what happens when you shoot when you get to when the puck gets into the slot and you shoot. Panarin got 2 assists because he sent it to the front of the net. He did it from 2 locations too. He assisted on Kako's goal where he passed from coming behind the net, and then on Kreider's from closer towards the point, he sent it all the way up to the slot, and Kreider was able to just kiss it right off of his stick past Tokarski. Then Adam Fox, playing in his 100th career NHL game, scores a goal. And first off, thank God that Zibanejad shot the puck. And I'm not singling out Zibanejad. It could have been literally anybody, because if they try to pass that puck once more, that goal doesn't happen. And that's the passing that you like to see from the New York Rangers. It's that clean tic-tac-toe, which leads to Fox tucking the rebound. And let's just talk about Adam Fox for just 1 second. Sam Rosen said it best. Adam Fox was only playing in his 100th career NHL game, but the way that he plays, he's playing as though it was his 1000th. Probably one of the best defensemen that I've seen on the Rangers in a while. I'm so excited to see the future of the defense between him and Keandre Miller. A lot of potential between the two of them there. And then, of course, the game-winning goal that came off the stick of Kreider. Ryan Strome, thank you for being a good example as to why sometimes he's got to shoot the puck and put it on net. He recognizes that he's got 2 guys down low, and it's not just anybody. It's Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, 2 players that have been on fire lately. And he shoots for a rebound that Kreider is able to put in the net before it even touches the ice after bouncing off of Tokarski. So let's talk a little post-game. Chris Knoblauch improved his record as the Rangers head coach to 3-1. The New York Islanders that same night beat the Flyers in overtime, held the Flyers to just gaining 1 point. So now the Rangers trail by 2 for 5th place in the East Division. The Flyers currently holding at 34 points, and the Rangers just trailing with 32. Next game tonight against the Flyers, most likely going to be Chris Knoblauch's final game behind the bench. It's been that 10 days that's required under the NHL rulebook with COVID protocol. Vitaly Kravtsov, one of the top Rangers prospects, could be playing soon. Probably not going to be playing against Philadelphia tonight, potentially against Saturday. I don't think anything has been said about him playing tonight. Chris Knoblauch earlier said that it wasn't his decision. It was up to David Quinn. He had his first practice with the Rangers Tuesday morning. He just needed to get through a cardiac screening, and that was his first bit of action. He didn't practice with the main squad yet. They had the day off, but he practiced with some of the extras. But then on Wednesday morning, he had that practice with everybody else, and they announced that everybody who was at practice that morning was going to be coming on the road trip with them. So I would anticipate on potentially seeing the Rangers' top prospect playing most likely on Saturday against the Flyers. I believe they play on Saturday. Capo Caco also I want to talk about, because you got to make sure that you've got a space for Kravtsov, and I wonder if he might fill in on the third line. Caco originally started in that game against Buffalo. He started on the third line with Lafreniere and Philip Hedl, but later Knoblauch switched it up and he replaced him with Colin Blackwell on the second, or Caco replaced Blackwell on the second line, and he wound up playing with Artemi Panarin and Ryan Strome. And you wonder if this is going to be the new normal. That third line still stays the kid line. It's going to, except rather than Caco on that right wing, it's going to be Lafreniere, Hedl, and Vitaly Kravtsov. Igor Shesterkin is back from injury. He'll be starting tonight for the Flyers. Big player for the Rangers. Good to have him back between the pipes. I think that after this, they'll probably go back to Shesterkin being the starter, and Georgiev will probably back up, which I hate to say it, no offense to Georgiev or anything, but I almost wish that Kincaid was the backup. He's been playing great lately. Excited to see, more from him on days where Shesterkin or Georgiev get a day off. But if the Rangers are able to squeeze in past Pittsburgh, in the future for that fourth playoff spot, this is a team that, even if they don't make it past the first round, they're not going down without a fight. And I'm really looking forward to this game against Philadelphia tonight. Need to win it to tie, and then hopefully they can win on Saturday as well, and have full ownership of that fifth place spot in the East.